everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to Paws On Animation and another Transformers podcast.
And today we're covering the 2007 series Transformers Animated, and they act like they haven't done it before.
Now, this version of the franchise puts a new spin on our favorite Autobots as they end up becoming the heroes of Earth as they protect the AllSpark from getting into the hands of the Decepticons. Even though the other Cybertronians don't believe the Decepticons are back.
For whatever reason. Before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
And thank you for joining us today, subscribing to our channels, sharing our videos, commenting, everything you do. We appreciate you so much.
Yes.
And we need to give a special shout out to Playmaker,
yes,
who requested that we watch this series because it is his favorite, if we're not mistaken, either one of his two favorites or his favorite.
Yes.
From his childhood.
Yes.
Thank you for suggesting it.
Definitely. And this is one we have been looking forward to watching for a little while because we've been watching a lot of Transformers series lately. Starting with the rewatch of Prime, we got to watch G1 of Transformers and even some of the movies that have been made. Mm-hmm. And this one seemed kind of interesting from the clips and pictures we had seen, but we didn't know really anything about this. We came back 2 years later after we had done the pilot, and then we had time to finally watch it. So now we've seen the series from beginning to end.
Yes. For those of you not familiar with Transformers Animated like we weren't, it's a superhero animated TV series based on the toy line. It was produced by Cartoon Network Studios and Hasbro together, but animated by the Answer Studio, Mook Animation, and Studio 4C Shorts. Mm-hmm. They debuted back in December 2007 and ended May 2009 with 42 episodes across 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. He had some great voice actors we're familiar with, we'll tell you about later. And it was produced in English as well as dubbed in Japanese.
Yes. And if I remember, it was also, I think it was partially animated in Japan too. Or I think it was all animated in Japan, which is why it has that sort of odd look to it. Like, is it anime? But it's not all anime. You can tell when you watch it, especially when they start having the fight scenes and the transformation sequences, that it has that sort of anime-esque vibe to it.
Very true.
And for this series, apparently, I think it was made a little bit after they had started doing the live-action movies by Michael Bay. And then this one isn't really connected to those movies, but they do sort of lift ideas and storylines from those films to make their own. And for what they do, for the most part, whether it's from those movies or they make their own thing, they do a pretty good job of establishing their own continuity. They still reference a lot from the original 80s series, which they really, really love, as you can tell on here. Mm-hmm. But they still make it stand out and not just rip off from other franchises or other past incarnations just to get it out.
True. So back to the animation. There was an American version, which is the one we watched, and there was also a Japanese version because the American was actually released first.
Okay.
It was shown in Japan at a 4:3 aspect ratio, similar to Cartoon Network's broadcast, unlike the 16:9 ratio used by the hub. Mm-hmm. So to compensate, the Japanese version added side backgrounds such as one featuring the Autobot insignia.
Oh,
they
wow.
also modified the dub to resemble the movie more closely, retaining the original character names as well as the tone of the movie. So they wanted it to be different from our version.
Yes.
I guess to suit their audience. And that's what they did. Now, one thing I thought was really interesting that I want to get to is how this animation, as well as Ben 10 Omniverse, mm-hmm. as well as what's the
Teen Titans.
Thank you. Teen Titans are the same animation, and
yes.
you can see it so clearly in here. And on top of that, you can see the inspiration for some characters in Prime.
Yes.
Including Miko.
Yes.
And it was just interesting seeing those references and the original ideas for.
Exactly. And from what I remember, the artist behind this show and those others we mentioned, I think, was Derek Wyatt. And unfortunately, he had passed, I believe, last year or the beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. And they had made a comic dedicated to him because Transformers seemed to be his favorite franchise. And they made him a character in that universe and made a sort of farewell comic to him, and I thought it was a really nice thing they did for him.
Yes, Derek White, the art director and lead character designer.
Yes, thank you. And like you said, you can see these elements put into Ben 10 Omniverse, and you can see a lot of Teen Titans put into this show, because there were a lot of times you were watching this and you could almost see like a Teen Titans crossover with it. So much it reminds you of that. It still stands out as its own thing, but because of that art style and even a few voice actors from that show in here, you just couldn't help but think of Teen Titans while watching it.
True. And there's a couple more contributes to Teen Titans. He had the supervising director Matt Youngberg from Teen Titans and the Batman, along with Sam Register, who created Hi Hi Puffy.
Oh my gosh, that explains a lot too.
Yes, and you also had Marty Eisenberg return as the head writer for the series, and Beastmaster's writer.
Right.
So yeah, you had a lot of additional intricate details added by people who worked on Teen Titans.
Yes.
And again, it was obvious looking at a lot of the episodes and designs and things, including the city that's in here. That
Yes.
Teen Titans.
Yes. And speaking of that, you said superhero show, and all Transformers superhero. But I think in here, another standout is that they are technically in-universe superheroes in here, because the way they set it up is probably what inspired Transformers 1. They weren't already heroes and warriors and long-standing in the war. It was supposed to already be over. They were like in the aftermath, sort of cleanup crew. They have the AllSpark. They find they're supposed to just take it somewhere. And then this incident happens with Starscream. They end up on Earth, and they kind of end up stuck there. So when they're defending the Earth, or at least the city, from Starscream, they also end up defending it from human villains, which was a little weird to me in the beginning, because it was so weird seeing the Autobots fight just people. And they were the comic book villains, you could tell they were. And they had this set up where they were the Saturday morning format of fighting a villain a week, and they were literally superheroes of Detroit.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up, because the reason I specify superhero and not the other genres is also Phil's is because Wyatt himself specifically said it was meant to be a superhero show with a brand new look and its own continuity. So I just wanted to establish this stands on its own.
Right.
It's
and they
superhero because when you look at it, some of the times you're looking at the designs, it looks very kiddie-ish, and sometimes, you know that it's a target audience is kids.
Yes.
That's what it was.
And it succeeded.
And some people looking at that will go, well, that's not a superhero show because they look like toys and it looks like, it's more for a younger audience. But no, it is meant to be a superhero show.
Yes.
Therefore, that's why I said it.
Yes.
But it's also meant to fill a couple of genres, believe it or not, action, adventure,
yeah, it does
sci-fi,
have a lot of action later.
and mecha. So
yes,
we're trying
it
to
fits.
cover all the bases, not only for us, but again for that Japanese audience.
Yeah, exactly. And you could tell it was leaning towards more Japanese audience and the action tone when it got later down the line. First season kind of stayed being a sort of, let's say, villain of the week, superhero fighting a villain, save the day, and it's sort of action comedy adventure type thing. But at the end of the first season, from that point onwards, they start to get more serious with Decepticons coming back, because like we said, these people don't believe Decepticons are back, and it was so infuriating that these dummies were not listening. Like, they're back. We're telling you 20 times they're here. Oh, they can't be back. You're just incompetent. They can't be here. And then Starscream shows up finally. It's like, are you stupid? So I do think it's interesting that they started off with this format and then delve more into being more serious, much more serious towards the end.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what ended up inspiring Transformers Prime when they decide to go full on serious and reverse it with only a little bit of humor.
Also, it was interesting that for the historical background episodes, they actually used footage from Generation 1 series.
Yes.
As historical film.
Yes. And they show they really do love the original series. They kept paying tribute to it. And then finding out a lot of the voice actors from G1 guest starred in here.
Yes, and we'll get to that. I want to point out that this show is one of 2 Cartoon Network Studio shows whose rights are not owned by Warner Brothers Discovery.
Really?
The other being the 2003-2005 Star Wars Clone Wars, which you love.
Okay.
Series owned by Walt Disney Company via
Really?
Lucasfilm. Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess interesting who ends up getting the rights to these series. They start out in the hands of one franchise, and then because they think it's no longer popular or no longer relevant, they sell it and get rid of it. And then you're like, no, because you don't know what the franchise who purchased it is going to do with it.
Exactly.
But it looks like right now Transformer Animated is going to stay just this one and done series with the 3 seasons.
Right.
So let's get to some of the episodes, because you know what my favorite episode is.
Yes.
But tell them a little more about the synopsis of the series itself, and then we can talk about that great episode. To me, the best episode of the entire series that they didn't commit to
the whole
to the
time.
end of the episode.
Okay. So
Why do you keep saying episode?
Right, I don't know. So the format is that they have to protect the AllSpark from evil. They do a pretty good job for a majority of the series. Like we said, Megatron ends up coming in, and they slowly introduce the Decepticons. They go from fighting the villains like they're comic book villains or miraculous ladybug villains if you watch that show. And then they start mixing in more Decepticons. They add in the Dinobots, like nearly 1-to-1 with G1. I kind of thought they were going to do this thing in the beginning. I get they were changing the origin, but when they had them look realistic, but they were still Dinobots, I really liked that. But then all the skin and stuff came off and they looked exactly like G1. And I'm sure that was fine for the people that watched it, but I kind of was disappointed because I kind of thought it would be cool. They looked like the dinosaurs, but they were still mechanical on the inside.
Yeah, that would have been.
And then as it went on, they fought more Decepticons, and they started having this ongoing story where there was a traitor in the mist when they had the Elite Guard, and they had not Ultra Magnus, it was Sentinel Prime, who is Valior if you've seen Teen Titans, because he's got problems with humans and it's getting a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And apparently all the robots have that problem, so nice to know it's Monsters Inc.
Yeah. For this series, you had some main Autobots and main Decepticons. The Autobots were Optimus Prime, Prowl, Ratchet, Bulkhead, and Bumblebee.
Mm-hmm.
The main Decepticon cast: Megatron, Starscream, Blitzwing, Lugnut, and Black Arachnia. I gotta get it right.
Which was the most surprising change they did with her.
And then the main Organics is what they kept calling the humans.
It's like, why do you keep saying that?
Professor Isaac Sumdac, Sari Sumdac, and Captain Fanzone. And speaking of Sari, she's definitely inspiration for Miko and Prime.
Yes.
The attitude, the design, everything. And it was like, oh my gosh, except for in here, she was Middle Eastern, and in Prime, she's Japanese.
Right.
But there's no mistaking that this was Miko 0, a 1.0 Miko.
Right. And they also took inspiration from My Life's a Teenage Robot, because by the 3rd season, you find out that she ends up getting older sort of by forced and accident, and she becomes older, and when they show her design when she has on the metal suit and everything, I said, okay, this is Teenage Robot. Like, this is not a Teenage Robot, so great, you got her involved with them too.
And then you also see why in Prime, it wasn't just Miko that had a connection to an Autobot. Each one of the kids had an Autobot they had a connection to. But it came from here, because Miko with her connection to,
I guess it was Bumblebee first, and then ended up being Bulkhead and other characters later. So I guess she got to each of them later.
But she's the reason for that happening in that series, because that's what happened.
Yes.
And then after the episode we saw, as you said, where she became older, she became a teen, then they said she was part Autobot.
Yes.
And so then they had an even more of a connection to her.
Right.
But I'm glad they didn't do that for Prime. I'm glad they left it the way it was.
Yeah.
And kept that unique to the series,
right.
because it is unique to it.
Right.
And it would have been nice for me personally if she had become older sooner rather than when it happened, because
much later.
I think there could have been some more interesting episodes.
Yes.
Because she had a whole personality change.
Yeah, she did.
And she began to act older and more bossy.
More moody.
Yeah. So I think it would have been more interesting.
Yes. And then we get to the episode actually ended up being one of your favorites,
Yes.
which was ended up being both a two-parter and a holiday episode called Human Error.
Yes, I absolutely loved it when it first started. I was like, I can't believe this is the same series. This is so good. And you got to see them in their human forms, as you've probably seen.
Right,
now.
which are pretty funny.
Yes, and them riding the bus and doing all these other things. And I was hooked and drawn in, and I couldn't wait to see the remainder of the episode in part 2. And no spoiler, because it's 1,000 years old. And then all of a sudden, you see that it's the Matrix. Like, what?
Ah!
All of a sudden, they're hooked up like the Matrix.
Yeah,
and
to
it
put to
starts
sleep.
branching out to other movies and series it copy from it. I'm like, oh, you ruined the aesthetic.
Oh my
you
gosh.
ruined the whole episode, because up until that point I was hooked.
And
it would have been interesting to see them all the way almost to the end of the second episode.
Part, yeah.
You didn't know that they were hooked up like the Matrix.
Right.
And then it would have been a big reveal, and it would have been like, whoa!
Yes.
This is the best 2-part episode ever of Transformers. It got ruined because they did that, and then it went to being a joke in the second episode.
Yeah,
and
which
it was like, why?
And we want to explain because, like we said, it's a holiday episode when you see it, and I thought that was interesting to add that in there.
Yeah.
And they wake up like this, and at first I thought they were doing this sort of Christmas magic type episode,
Yes.
and it's like, let's, and they, they have this, the other robots have this thing where organics, Monsters Inc., they kind of don't like him, you already know what it is. And I thought it was an idea where it's like a Christmas magic where let's see what it's like for the Autobots in human shoes, because they were saying it's a lot more difficult to fight. They're more damageable. They could actually get killed easily. It was a lot harder to be human than Autobot, and a lot of them were experiencing they did not have it easy. And I really thought they were going somewhere with that, walking a mile in a human shoes, and they actually learn, whatever they think of the humans, there is a reason they have to protect them. They can fight, but they could easily get killed much more than the Autobots. And I felt like the message was lost the second part, because after they found out it wasn't real, it was like, oh, screw it, we can do what we want. Just use your imagination. And it felt like they missed out on the story and the lesson in it, for at least for us.
Yeah, and again, up to that part, for me, that was the best episode, my favorite episode, until the too soon reveal. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
So quickly about some of the
voice actors
branching out. They had a comic adaptation in 2008 published by IDW. And also the same year they published a comic series featuring original stories titled Transformers Animated The Arrival.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, a manga adaptation titled Transformers Animated The Cool created
by
Naoto
my gosh,
Tsushima and serialized in Carol Ace magazine in 2011. And last but not least, for merchandising, there was also a video game. It was the first game based on the series released by Nintendo DS in October 2008 by Activision. They also had 2 arcade games, Transformers Animated The Chase and Transformers Animated The Shooting.
Really?
And it released in Japan by Sega. So it looks like Japan really was the focus of everything they really wanted.
Yeah.
And not us, and that's too bad. So
well.
So now let's get to shout out to the main cast. Jeff Bennett.
Yes!
And
oh my gosh!
Each of these people voiced a lot of characters, so I'm going to read this so I don't get it wrong. Jeff Bennett voiced Prowl, Ultra Magnus, Soundwave, Mixmaster, Grandus, Captain Fanzone,
Mixmaster,
Angry Archer, and Sparkplug in Season 1.
Yes.
Corey Burton voiced Ratchet, Megatron, Shockwave, Ironhide, Spitewit Wiki, Cyrus the Colossus Rose, Cyclonus, and Brawn.
Oh my gosh, the names.
Bill Fagerbaki, aka Patrick.
Patrick!
Voiced Bulkhead, Hotshot, and Master Disaster.
All I hear was Patrick the whole time.
Yes. David Cave voiced Optimus Prime, Grimlock, Lugnut, Highbrow, Cliffjumper, Warpath, and Sparkplug Season 2.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, still, Peter Cullen is the best.
Of course. Yeah.
Tom Kenny
Voiced
Starscream, Scrapper, Wasp, Waspinator, Jetfire, Skywarp, Sunstorm, Thundercracker,
He had the most!
Rattletrap, Professor Isaac Sumdac, and Tutorbot.
And what's funny is that both he and Bill Packard-Bach were in here, so it was Spun and Patrick in another universe.
Yes,
and they were enemies.
We kept referencing them.
SpongeBob, Starscream!
Buffalo Robinson voiced Bumblebee, Blitzwing, Blackout, Porter C. Powell, and Lester Black. Tara Strong voiced Sari, Sumdac, Red Alert, Streaka, Slipstream, Teletran or Teletran 1, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Essel's Aide, Daniel, Carly, Slow-Mo, and the receptionist box.
Yeah.
And Cree Summer voiced Black Arachnia and Alita 1.
That was a surprise,
You
too.
had a whole lot of other guest voices, including Lance Henriksen. I know from Pumpkinhead, Phil Lamar. You had Kevin Michael Richardson, Kathy Susie, Peter Stamari, Fred Willard, George Takei, Weird Al
Yankovic.
And a shout out to John Moshida voicing Blur, who he voiced, what was the
in the
he
original
voiced the
Transformers
Fast
and Blur, yeah.
So
that was cool, actually, that they had voice actors in here from that one. I thought that was a great thing.
Yes, so it was a journey watching it, and as you mentioned, it went from being more fun-based and story unfolding season 1 to more goofy season 2 to more serious season 3. But the animation, as you said, it stands out as being different from the other series and having a whole lot of favorite voice actors we love contributing to a success.
Yes.
So if you've seen Transformers animated, let us know in the comments. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you see it in your childhood? Did you see it as a teen? Did you watch it later? Let us know. If you haven't seen it, every Transformers series is available on Tubi to watch for free.
Yes.
So head over there, give it a watch, come back and tell us what you think. And be sure to tell us your favorite Autobot or Decepticon, because we want to know.
Right. And if you don't know, subscribe for updates and videos for anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today and subscribing to our channels and helping us out. It means so much to us. As always,
you are specials. Thank you so much for watching. Rascal Entertainment.
And Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.